The following is a Productions original series.
Hello and welcome to Walk and Roll Live. I'm Doug Vincent along with Addie Rich. We are a podcast. I hear her. I hear you. We are a podcast dedicated to giving a voice to the disabled community. We do that by having those with a disability on to tell their stories and the organizations on that provide programs, services, and support to the community to share what they do. I am a polio survivor, crutch and brace user for years, transitioned into a wheelchair over the last 20 years. What's your story, young lady?
I was born with cerebral palsy. I decided to come mighty early and show up in something a little bit different. And now I am using a walker most of the time, heading toward a wheelchair, looking at Doug for inspiration about how to do it and getting some good thoughts.
I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And I apologize. Do we not do that anymore, young lady? I probably shouldn't address you that
was funny. It was fine.
Is it all right? Okay.
You dated yourself, but it was fun.
I know. I'm an old white guy, just so you know. All right. How was your week?
It was good.
Yeah? Anything exciting?
No, in Atlanta. That was exciting. Woke up on Friday morning, looked out the window as I do every morning and realized it was freaking snowing. So we got 5 inches.
So for those of us that don't know, really, Atlanta not very often gets snow?
Not very often. Like, I would say we probably get a little dusting of snow maybe 2 times a year, but it's generally like late January, early February, and it never sticks.
Yeah, so if it snowed in the morning, it'd be gone by the afternoon.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like as soon as the sun comes out. And, I was jumping up and down like Christmas morning kid and so excited and went for a walk so I could make my footprints and all that. So that was my dream of a week.
So how long did it last?
It's still here a little bit.
Wow.
It rained a bit, so now it's a little bit slippery, so I'm not going out there to, fly into making snow angels, but it's still hiding out in the places that don't get so much sun.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Fun.
How about you?
What was this week? Nothing much. Poker night was on Saturday night. I don't think there was anything, worth missing. I did. It was touch and go there for a while. I was trying to give away my money, but I had a nice little surge at the end, and we buy in. I've been playing with these guys for over 20 years, so we just buy in with $20, and we bought chips, so we've got all the chips and all that. So it's nickel, dime, quarter, dollar or 50 cents as well, and so the ante is like 15 cents every time, that kind of thing. But it's funny because you get $3 or $4 in the pot, and we're all like, all the chips. We're playing with chips, right? So the $5 chips we call nickel, $10 chips we call a dime. Gotcha. So sometimes I think it's in our head. We're looking at it and I go, geez, there's like $400 in here, and it's $4.
Right. I've never learned to play really, but my dad, my grandma, my mom, and sister used to play, and so that's kind of a family joke because my grandma would always just say a dime.
That's us.
So every once in a while, they're like a dime, and we all laugh because we know what they're talking about.
Means.
But I have no clue. So don't sit me at the table with you guys because I will lose my everything.
And it's dealer's choice. So we play, silly games, AC-doocy and pass the trash and just all kinds of different games like that. Yeah. It's just fun to get together and bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, of course, I've been watching as the entire country and world has the devastation in LA. I had a lot of relatives, friends contacting me because they know, you live in Southern California. And it's like everybody is Southern California. When you hear Southern California, they think it's all one little place, but it's huge. So I'm 50 miles probably east of that. But I don't even think my mind can comprehend it, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Growing up there, obviously, I have cousins still down there. I have friends and everybody, doing the check-ins of like, do you still have a house? What's going on? Where are you? And because they were talking about like air quality, I know my cousins didn't lose their house, but they left because the air quality was so bad.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. And what was I saying? I don't know. But, you know, and it's heightened my awareness. I've been evacuated from my house at least twice, maybe 3 times. The first time was in 2003. We had 2 huge fires, much like, you know, is going on now. And there's Santa Ana winds in early October here. And they both were going towards each other just north of my house. And I'm literally, you know, what they call the urban interface. I'm about 4 blocks away from where the wilderness starts. And in 2003, it got right down to that side of the road, which is a 4-lane, 2 lanes going either direction, and a middle section away from houses. And for years, those trees, although were on the house side of the street, they didn't burn, but they were probably moments from bursting into flames. Because when they got the fire suppressed, brought bulldozers in and moved all the vegetation out of the way to increase that part.
Right.
But those trees for 10, 15 years were like a half a tree because one side kind of melted, you know, just from the heat, you know. So,
I mean, it's just crazy.
So now I see that and I'm like, I'm worried because we're having Santa Ana again today. And tomorrow the wind's not too bad, but it's blowing a little bit, it's common here where I live. I live right below the 15 comes down out of the Column Pass. And it's, you know, we get 60, 70 miles every year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
which is crazy.
Yeah. So it scares me.
I know I watch all the people on TikTok and YouTube and all those places now. And like some of them are talking about clipping the sprinklers onto their roof eaves and stuff and buying fire retardant. I'm like, okay, you guys need to do that. Like just have it there. But like you literally.
A buddy of mine at poker said a friend of his did that. He set them up on top of the house, the sprinklers, and left. And when he came back, his house was still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
You gotta hire somebody for you, Doug, to put those on your roof.
I don't know if it's going to help. I have because it's mandatory, because of where we live and all that. I have a sprinkler system in my house.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that'll help or not, but you know,
all you people.
we hope. All right. Thank you to Chris Benedict, our guest from last week. Another, you know, fascinating interview, and you know, got to keep an eye on him and hear more of what he's up to. And just you know, I love folks like that see an opportunity and seize it.
Right.
You know, I think those things are open to all of us. You know, you just have to be aware, you know, and pounce when you see it. That door does open. You just got to take it. All righty. And then coming up today, this should be a hoot. Yeah. And I'll tell the story when we're talking to Brian about how we met and all that. But today on Walk and Roll Live, we are thrilled to welcome Brian Bushway. He is a true pioneer in adapting and thriving without sight. Brian lost his vision at 14. I wrote a little something here. Actually, I wrote about a page. I thought, no, we'll get into all that with Brian. It doesn't need to be that long, but I kind of wanted to set it up. He lost his vision at 14, but turned that challenge into an opportunity to transform lives through his mastery of FlashSonar. It's a form of active echolocation. He works with blind students and sighted mobility instructors worldwide. We'll hear more about that. Creating innovative programs and offering guidance to families. His expertise has taken him across the globe, from consulting with international organizations to being featured in documentaries and media outlets like CNN and BBC. Brian's story is one of resilience, innovation, and perseverance. And we can't wait to dive into his incredible journey. We'll do that right after this word from Ugyar Professional Training.
At Ugyar Professional Training, we know that your greatest asset is your team. Investing in their development, knowledge, and happiness is essential for your business's success and growth. To achieve new heights, it's important to hire intelligent, talented individuals and empower them to excel in their areas of strength and passion. Ugyar is committed to transforming your employees into happier, more productive, and fulfilled individuals. When your team thrives, your business prospers. Wise leaders understand that providing team members with opportunities to shine in their strengths unlocks untapped potential. Elevate your team with Ugyar Professional Training and witness the growth of your business.
You're listening to Walk and Roll Live Disability Stories.
We're here to take our place. We're carving paths, we're building dreams, we're running life's great race. Don't raise us up on fragile words or call us brave for just being. We want a world that's fair and true, not bound by what you're seeing. Don't set us apart, don't hold us back. We're here to shine, to stay on track. Judge us by effort, heart, and skill, not by your pity or goodwill. We walk and roll, we climb, we fight, we light our way, we claim our right. Not your heroes, just living bold.
Welcome back to Walk and Roll Live, and we've got a wonderful guest today, which I want to tell a little story about, and how he came into my sphere of influence, and and I saw him, and I thought, gosh, he's got to be on the show. But we'll get into that. But let's start with an introduction by you, your name, where you're from, and disability status.
Yeah, my name is Brian Bushway. I'm from Southern California, and I'm legally blind or totally blind, or I see with sound, and maybe seeing with sound, that'll add more clarity later when we get into the discussion a little deeper.
Yeah, that definitely was one of the hooks that got me. So let me just real quick, I'll tell how you did come into my sphere. I volunteer with an organization. Well, a couple of organizations come together. Anthesis, I volunteered there, and they're a program for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And within that, then there's Kiwanis, which is a service club, and they have they have some leadership levels in that. And one of them is Action Club, which is for that population. And every year they have a convention up in Central California. And last year when I went, well, actually in 2023 when I went, they showed a video, and they showed a video of Brian, and and it kind of told the story of how he came to be blind, and then what he was doing with it. And he was this perceptual navigation that he uses, and he's out riding a bike. In the woods at some point, there was video of him going through trees, and I'm thinking, how's he doing this without running into trees? Of course that's your thought. And I thought, this is great. He'd be great on the show. So I started to try to find how I could reach out to him, and reached out, and never got a response. And I thought, you're busy. You're all the things that can happen, and didn't think much of it. And then the next year, this past year, I go to the convention, and they've invited him to come, and he's accepted to be a speaker at the event. So I'm like, all right, I got to stalk this guy. So my first opportunity I could get, I thought what was going to be a few moments, and Brian was so gracious. I think we spent, 30 minutes talking to you and your lovely wife. So appreciate you coming on now and sharing your story, because it's a great one.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk more. There were just so many other amazing people there that you just, my attention was pulled in so many directions.
Absolutely. Well, I knew I'd get my chance here to have you all to myself, and with Addie.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, rip off, don't forget me.
Yeah.
And Brian, he's been talking about you for weeks, so not to pump you up even more, make sure you sit in the doorway.
Yeah.
But
No pressure.
Yeah.
So let's go back. Let's go back to, you as a young man and just living your life as a teenager, right? Let's start there.
Yeah, I would have, I guess, a pretty active young person's life. I enjoyed riding bikes. I played ice hockey, enjoyed building forts. We would go fishing in the foothills of Southern California, and never really considered much that I'd end up becoming blind and experiencing low vision until, the end of 7th grade, when I couldn't see the board anymore.
Yeah.
And I talked to the girl next to me, and was like, hey, could you just tell me what's on the board? And I was looking on her paper to get the notes, and she's like, "Stop cheating! Stop looking at my paper." I'm like, "It's the same information on the board. There's no cheating here." But she's like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Go get glasses."
So at first, was it just fuzzy, Brian?
Yeah,
right?
It was really. It was really just this loss of field of vision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just started shrinking, getting smaller and smaller. But it turned out I was probably low vision and really functional a lot longer, and just sort of adapting naturally, just trying to keep up with my friends and play games. But definitely, I was, low vision. And when I was experiencing, that, I mean, the real first significant thing was my left eye was always bad. In this moment when she's like, "Go get your glasses," I said they never really worked very well. My left eye has always been bad, and I covered up my good eye, and the left eye was black. There's no eye perception.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the wake-up call to start going to doctors and figuring out what's going on here. And it is my optic nerve, which is a cable that goes from the back of the eye to the brain. It was dying and deteriorating, which they call optic nerve atrophy. So my eyeballs were fine, my brain was fine, but there was no cable of information, between the two. But yeah, low vision was a trip, man. That was a wild experience, because I didn't even know enough about anything to know what I was missing, what I wasn't. I just realized I couldn't participate in play hockey effectively anymore, or different lighting conditions started affecting what I could see, and my world started getting smaller in subtle ways. And I just sort of tried to make it up as, this is my preference now. I'm not going to do this because it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
As opposed to wait, there could be adaptive things. I was playing hockey, and the hockey coach is like, "Brian, what are you doing? Get the puck. Are you blind or something? Go get the puck." And that's exactly what was going on.
Yeah. He called it. He diagnosed it.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? And then, I remember emotionally being kind of hit, because I couldn't see enough to feel like I could play on the team. And I had no idea about adaptive sports. I didn't even know how to think adaptively or creatively of how a person can learn to use adaptive tools or use their imagination to come up with creative solutions to start gathering the information they need around the world. I didn't know how to think like that yet.
Yeah, and why would you? You're an active teenager. Those things aren't on your radar. I think there's a lot of people in the disabled community that don't know those things are out there.
Yeah. Why do you, what is it about us as humans why we don't connect those dots very quickly?
You're asking the wrong guy.
Question. So when you're experiencing these differences, is it daily that you feel the difference? Is it from week to week or month to month? How is it kind of happening? Do you wake up today and go, "Oh, there's a new spot in my vision," or, Yeah,
it was more of just I'd go out, and as I was losing my vision, barely can see 8 feet in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
I was into aggressive rollerblading. I was skating half pipes, jumping stairs, grinding rails. Yeah. And it was changing week to week.
Okay.
And there's one moment where we're skating to a fast food restaurant, and I was visually following my friends. I didn't have enough distance or preview. So instead of just physically holding on to someone's arm, I was just keeping them in my physical threshold, which was 6-8 feet, and just following them.
Right.
And then one day they get farther out, and I notice there's a dip, there's a change in texture on an asphalt, and then horns are honking their horns.
Ooh.
I had crossed the street on a red.
Oh, shoot. But yeah, you wouldn't have.
So were your friends aware that you were experiencing this?
Yeah, but yes and no. I mean, I told them, why are you going to all these doctors? I don't see well.
But they didn't really realize that they couldn't get out of your vision because you were keying on them to know where you were going.
Yeah, I was like functionally outperforming what my visual acuity was.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So was that a conscious effort to kind of hide your condition from them? You think?
I don't even know if it was conscious. I was just trying to keep up and just go have fun and play. Like, it just made more sense for me to try to do things than not. And in the background of all of this, there's doctors don't know why I'm losing my vision. So there isn't even this story or narrative that, oh, you better prepare yourself because one day you may wake up and have no light perception anymore.
Yeah, so they haven't made a diagnosis. They don't even know if they can maybe reverse it or anything.
Yeah. So so it's really like this whole state of just like unknowing, and you're kind of hoping for the best. And in reflecting about it, I thought, oh, maybe there'll be a medical intervention where I'll be able to see again, or maybe it'll come back because they don't know. But yeah, I mean, all my friends, I got hit in the head with so many balls, they would just throw them, and then bam, I couldn't seem to catch them. Like, and then there would be moments like that where they go, oh, maybe he can't see very well.
If your friends were anything like mine, they would have probably just thrown things at me, knowing that I wouldn't see it coming.
Oh, well, that happens later. Later on, when I got older and was like in a different scenario, then they were just looking for opportunities to exploit my weaknesses, which really eventually made me stronger. Like later on, my friends would like drive me home and be like, oh, we've arrived at your house and it's the wrong house.
Right.
And they're like, get out of the car, we're here. And I'd be like, no, we're not at my house. Like, how do you know?
You call them out. I like it.
Call them out. Right. Friends are brutal, but yeah.
So there was a period then where it all kind of becomes a realization, and how'd you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, the realization pretty much happened when one morning, like I start the 8th grade. So the vision loss happened over like a summer vacation.
Oh, wow.
Basically from the end of 7th grade, where I was like functionally with vision, to starting 8th grade. I wake up one morning and it's so significant where I tell my mom I can't go to school. And I had started, 1 or 2 days in the 8th grade. And then maybe the 3rd day I was like, this isn't going to work. How do I get out of my bedroom?
Right.
Then you go to the eye doctor, and the eye doctor says, oh yeah, you're not really responding to patterns of light, and your optic nerve pretty much looks pretty much dead. And then you just still, even in those weeks, you still kind of hope that it's going to go back to what we previously know. And then they tell, there's nothing we can really do. You have optic nerve atrophy. And then the reality of the heaviness sits in for a while. And it's like,
how common is that? Do you know, Brian? Like an occurrence for people, or is this like a super rare thing, or it's just not talked about?
I mean, it happens to people, right? Optic nerve atrophy, but the fact to go from like functional, like vision and using patterns of light to then having no light perception is pretty unique.
Sounds pretty quickly too. It happened.
Yeah. With no real diagnosis or real understanding throughout all of this. So it was medical book history, my scenario. Like, we saw all the best doctors that we could, and they all were scratching their heads, wondering maybe they think it's a mutation in my DNA, but they've done tests and there's no family history. They still don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that point, how was the experience of getting some resources for you and, to start to learn how to navigate the world?
Yeah, the resource journey was like, there wasn't much out there.
I was going to say we could do better, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there was like, the doctors are like, well, go contact the Braille Institute. Like, one organization.
Yeah.
Which turned out to be a good lead, but you have one option.
Yeah. And nothing available in your school district.
I didn't even know about special education, right? That was part of the fact of like, what is the expanded core curriculum? What is special education? So once I had figured out that we had like legal rights as people, now that I was, I was already legally blind, but now being total, I had to really consider like what were my rights. And once I understood my rights and was educated by a few people, then I could start advocating for myself and started collecting the resources. And then, the conversations, do I stay at my home school? Do I get bused to strange schools with new people far away? What was the best life situation? But my parents, they started reading things as soon as we had like teachers come in. My mom and dad were pretty good about keeping an open mind. But my dad did think, oh, Brian's blind. He's going to live the rest of his life with us. We better have extra room. And then my mom started reading books about other like adults who were blind, that had families, that had jobs, that played sports, that lived these full lives. And she was like, well, how did they do that?
So your mom's advocating for kicking you out, huh?
Yeah.
I was like, get out.
Yeah.
Tough love. I like it.
Right? She's like, you can do this. This is your option. This is what's going to happen. And I'm going to prepare you. She kind of look for the solution and then kicked you toward it. It sounds like.
Yeah. So like my family, like social environment, they still had this, like they sense where they still treated me, even though everyone's figuring out like the blindness stuff, they still treated me like a whole person. Mm-hmm. I have two younger sisters, and my parents were out and said, well, Brian's in charge, even though he doesn't know how to operate a microwave yet. You still have to listen to his judgment.
Right. So
they did strategic things to still like keep that sense of self as I was developing as this young person in those like social roles.
I mean, I think that's one of the best things that parents can do for people, right? Doug and I talk about like, we got in trouble, we had chores, you know what I mean? Part of the reason we exist so well in the world right now is because we were treated no different, with small exceptions that were necessary.
Yeah, no getting out of anything, darn it.
Mm-mm.
No, but it's good. Like you say, years later, you look back, right? And it's like, thank God.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's the right perspective to have, because if you really think about the other option, is that I learned really quickly that society had just written me off. Mm-hmm. You're blind. If you can't see, how can you do anything? So it becomes this perfect excuse just not to do or try, and it actually makes everybody else's lives easier if you're just left on the couch.
Yeah, you just fall into that narrative, right?
Yeah. So there is really this whole lack of a societal knowledge about how other people actually adapt and can be creative, and even just a health literacy about how our brain can actually change to learn to do new things, which was becoming my experience as I was adapting into this new world. My brain was changing to process information in different ways.
And we definitely want to explore that, and we'll do that here in just a little bit, because that's where it really gets fascinating, I think. But I want to know, was it a struggle for you to get through this part of your transition? Where was there a part of you that just wanted to lay on the couch and just kind of isolate and say, "Oh, I don't know. Looks like it's going to be pretty difficult. I don't know if I want to do all that." Or did you jump in?
In those situations, I was a kid, so I didn't have I didn't have any autonomy and was just coming into my own self-agency. So everybody just says, nope, don't do it. You're going to get hurt if you move. Stay where you are. So that's what I did. And it felt like death.
So you didn't, you're on your own kind of just become recluse. You just were going along with the messages you were getting around you.
Yeah.
But then at some point you're like, I'm not liking this.
No, once I was like, because it was a couple months earlier, even though I had crappy vision, I was jumping half pipe.
Yeah.
It was like I had enough vision to get into trouble, but not enough to get out.
I love that line. That is awesome.
Perfect.
And so now once, everything is gone, I'm isolated at home. I'm out of school. I'm bored.
Yeah.
And life really just like quieted down. And for me, it was like, honestly, it was like soul crazy to want to be more.
Brian, that's one of the things over the year and a half or so that we've done these shows and listening to our guests. I've realized one thing, because you have a injury or whatever that changes your life dramatically, your personality doesn't change. If you were a thrill seeker before, you're going to be a thrill seeker after. If you're a rascal before, you're going to be a rascal after. If you're fine to just be, more of an academic type person, you're going to be that after. That doesn't change it. So yeah, you enjoyed being out there skateboarding and playing hockey and all those things. All of a sudden, that's just gone, which is a part of your personality, right?
Yeah, it was a way that I expressed myself. Mm-hmm. It's what I knew. And now it was like, once I was labeled blind, everyone started, predicting what a blind person does and how they do it and it was like they provided this social script of, here's what you now do with a disability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which maybe half of it was helpful. But then the other half of like the social expectations, everybody, I really found myself trapped in a box of low expectations. Mm-hmm. And so like I wake up one morning where everybody is like, oh, he can see, even though I really couldn't. And then I'm blind and I pick up a white cane, and it changed my social environment. Like that was the biggest shift, was how my social environment in that short period of time went from having high expectations to now having no to very little expectations.
So Brian fought back.
Well, yeah, it wasn't even like I was like wanting to prove anything or fight back. I just simply like sitting on the couch was boring.
Yep.
And my only answer out of what my like soul was craving for was I just had to try.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and in that moment, it was pretty shocking. Like, it was traumatic in the sense that I went through a whole identity crisis. And in that like identity crisis, I remember confiding with my mom, being like, Mom, what matters? What's still there? Like, what does this mean? And she, with great motherly wisdom, says, Brian, everything that matters is all still here. And that's your ability to have relationships with people. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that more as a young person. And this is brought me more into like philosophical ideas as a young person, just considering life. And I was thinking like, well, if relationships matter the most, and so I was like, well, what is the currency of relationships? Well, the currency of relationships is love. Well, how does me seeing patterns of light or not seeing patterns of light affect my ability to create love in the world?
Right.
So the thing that matters most, I actually am not limited in at all.
Yeah.
and that grounded me in the pursuit of finding the strength to then just go and try. And that's all I did. I didn't have any real big future plans other than, well, anything is better than not being stuck on the couch here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go out and give it a try.
Yep.
Yeah.
And let me crash into things. Let me fall off of things. let me say a bunch of bad jokes that don't land very well. Yeah. It had to face the social environment. Right. And that's one of the things now that I've think about. My life was affected in three environments: the physical environment, the social environment, and the inner psycho-emotional environment. The physical environment was challenging because you couldn't see anything anymore. So how do you access information? How do you know when the curb's dropping off? But the social environment it changed so much that I felt all of those tensions of, well, where do I belong? Where do I fit in? And as far as that inner environment, having that value system that relationships matter the most, and I have limitless potential in what matters most, was a pretty grounding thought, where I then was able to go out into the social environment and try to rebuild a new sense of self and identity.
Which is amazing that you had that intuition so young, because that laid the groundwork for the rest of your life. And that's tremendous.
So, yeah, and it was product of a loving environment, in that family, but then the expanding to the social community, it really was I call it this desert of disbelief. I wanted to try. So as soon as I learned, here's a white cane, here's what you do with it. It's oh, cool. I could do more things with this white cane. Even though everybody sees the white cane as this symbol of weakness or vulnerability, I was experiencing the white cane as a symbol of freedom.
Right.
Another example of perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. And that's really what those early years were really just dealing with, finding these perspectives on what matters most, and then realizing that, maybe most of the people actually are not living lives to their fullest. And it has nothing to do with one's disability. Just in general, most human beings aren't actually living up to their fullest potential, and being oh, wow, that sucks for them.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So you've decided to kind of make this your life's work. This is what you do now, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a teacher. We met from speaking and sharing life perspectives, and I'm currently work with a school called Wayfinder Family Services, and we work with 20 to 30 adults who have recently lost their vision or want additional skills so they can go to college or go get back into the workforce. So that's what I teach, all of these blindness, navigation skills. And really what I learned was, in what I think I am as a teacher, is answering this question. Everybody thinks, if you lose one sense, do the other senses get stronger? That's what I teach. The answer to that question: yes, they do, but you have to work at it, and you have to have a willing spirit to try.
So they don't just automatically get stronger. You have to nurture them.
Yeah, you have to nurture them.
And learn, probably get some knowledge about it and all of those things.
Yeah. And you have to go out and gather more experiences. And that's where these three questions, who do you really want to be? Who do you really want to become? And then what resources, skills, or adaptive tools are going to help you access the information in the physical world And then what type of attitudes and behaviors are we going to take when we're navigating the social waters?
Mm-hmm.
Do you do this through an organization?
Yeah. I mean, it's Wayfinder Family Services, where I currently offer my services and work for them. But prior to this, I taught all around the world. Like before COVID shut down the world, I was working in third world countries, orphanages in Calcutta, India. I've been to more countries helping other organizations developing teaching protocols and just approaches and working with individuals and working with families about this. But really, everything we're teaching, there's some specifics about how, a blind person or a person with low vision accesses like physical information, uses a cane or uses a magnifier. But really, what I've learned, all of this is just about becoming a better human being first. Mm-hmm. And then we happen to have our disability or hair color or whatever the other things we want to put behind that. But yeah, it's really just like that. Like we're all human beings first, and we happen to have these other unique things about accessing, the world and the things we want to do. Yeah,
as you're talking, Brian, through your transition and then leading into what now you do for work, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, these are all things that everybody could benefit from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It has. Yeah. I was a middle school teacher, and that was kind of always what I taught in the inner city here in Atlanta. And that's what I kind of always tried to get across to the kids is like, this is not your life destination. This is, let's get you out of this space and how to do that. So I totally relate to, it doesn't matter if you're different. It's just seeing the spark and how do you blow on it to make the best version of the human.
Yeah. And what was it in your guys' lives that made you think that you wanted to be better?
Right. Exactly.
Well, that's a question.
Addie, what do you think?
For me, I always feel like even though I arrived in a different shell, the universe always had a big story for me. Like it's always been innate that I wasn't supposed to sit still. So I can't really put my finger on it, except the universe said, here you go, now get moving.
Yeah. And the difference for our process was, I had polio at a year-old, so I don't know anything different. She came into the world with CP, so she didn't know any different. So that component of a family and the way we were raised is very important in both of our stories. And, and like she was saying before, we were treated no differently. We had other siblings. We had the same chores as them. My dad wasn't above putting us in the backyard and pulling weeds. We didn't get a pass on anything. And those same things. So when I got to the age where I started to think about what I was going to do to be on my own and be out of this, because that was the expectation. I mean, my dad's old school. When we turned 18, he started charging us rent. If you're going to stay here, you're going to, and everything else, you're paying for your own clothes now. You got a haircut, you're paying for it. Any of those things that came along with life. At 18, we started, paying for ourselves. So, okay, I had already started to work by then. But even before that, I started thinking about, I'm going to have to find a job. What can I do? What can't I do? Kind of making a list over here. That's all out. These are potential ones. And, and then what are my aptitudes? And never gave a lot of thought about actually the disability part, because that was easy. There's just things you can't do because you're,
right. We're not going to be servers.
Yeah, exactly. And, so then the things that I wanted to do, and then there's other limitations, like I wanted to be an architect for a while, but then I found out there's a lot of math in architecture. I'm like, I'm horrible at math. All right, let's take that one and put it over here. But but it was always that, you want to have a full life, I think is what motivates you. That, you have the dreams that everybody has. I wanted to, get married, have children, all of those things.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys had the right type of environment where you were able to sort of develop that sense of like agency where you were self-directed and not not be victims.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It was, you can't, what are you going to do? Because you have so many tools and you can't just sit on them. Like there was always an expectation of like, how they say, to whom much is given, much is expected. It was always that get out there, don't, don't sit here.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and that expectation that you said, right? The people expected you that you surrounded yourselves with. They expected you to still do more, right? And I think it was like Tony Robbins or probably some other wise person too on the way said, the best predictor of our future are the 5 people we spend the most time with.
That's interesting.
And if we want to change our future, if we, switch out 1 or 2 people, because our influences around us definitely affect us. And not feel like, I don't feel like a victim, to life or anything like that. And it doesn't sound like you guys do. Yeah, there's difficult things. There are things that are inconvenient, but I'm not a victim to my life circumstances. I'm still a whole person.
Right.
I think we could do a whole show on expectations. It's such a key and core component, I think, to the disabled community. I think many times people without disabilities want to lower expectations. And, I always use this example. You've seen the posters they put up at work, and, it's like reach for the moon or reach for the stars. And even if you fall short, you'll still get to the moon and, different things like that. Well, it seems like that is taken off the table for us many times. They lower the expectations because they think that we can't stretch ourselves. I want to be held to that same example. Stretch yourself. There's no shame in falling short. You tried. And maybe you try again, and maybe this time you will get there. But don't hold me back, just on your expectation.
And that expectation's coming from because they're really self-projecting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
They're trying to imagine their life in your shoes, in your scenario, and they go, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know how it's done. And so then they go, well, it can't be done because they don't know, because they don't have that experience, or they're just small-minded. And that speaks to the bigger problem of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is that like navigating the social waters and the expectations in which people are living in is a real influence on everybody in all minority communities.
Right. I was just going to say, like, even teaching in the inner city, that was the thing. Like, they're never going to leave these 10 blocks. Well, why not? Like, let's get you out of these 10 blocks just to show people you can move off the 10 blocks.
Yeah.
I think that happens in so many scenarios.
That's why I think traveling is so, people love traveling so much. You go to the next state and experience that, and it's like, wow. I mean, things are so much different just a state away. Imagine the other side of the country, or the other side of the world, right? How different things would be and how it changes your perspective.
Well, yeah, and I get asked this question, right? I enjoy going on vacation around the world and spent most of my life teaching around the world in strange places, in Belize, helping people develop cane skills in Mayan ruins.
Wow.
Working in, villages in Malawi where there's no electricity and running water. I've in college, spent time living in London and in Paris, going to the Eiffel Tower. And people ask, well, why would a blind person go sightseeing?
Well, why wouldn't they, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. This is the point of like the whole funny thing about language and how limited even that statement is. Number one, what is blindness? Number two, why would they not go? There's still like the recognition is somehow how much patterns of light one's perceiving, you're somehow less than a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
So much more to the experience, right?
Well, yeah. And then also this idea of like when I started learning like echolocation as a young person, right? Echolocation is sound reflects off of objects, and the human brain can image with sound.
Mm-hmm.
We've done MRI studies where they see that the object recognition parts of the brain are activated by echoes. So my brain, when like, you lose one sense, the other senses get stronger. It's true because of neuroplasticity, and my brain was learning to take auditory information, send it into the visual cortex, and started turning those auditory, the auditory information into meaningful spatial representations, which is an image. So we when we even say seeing and not seeing, we have to push the meaning of words. Our human brain images in two ways, whether we send it patterns of light or whether we send it patterns of sound.
Which is fascinating. So tell us more. Tell us more.
Right?
I'm glad
you are fascinated about.
I'm glad you got to this because I wanted to direct you this way. So I had to have you, teach us all about this while we had you on.
Yeah. Which brings just changes all of this. Okay, here I was, labeled totally blind. I have no light perception. I'm cruising down the hallways in the 8th grade within the first year of being blind. And I could tell that there's an object that I don't even know. There's something there in front of me. How can a human being tell that there's something there without having to touch it? It was a phenomenon of experience. I can move around this thing. And it was a pillar holding up the ceiling in this sort of outdoor area. And my brain was like, oh, you're seeing it.
Yeah.
But like, what? I can't see. I close my eyes. It would still be there. And I shared this with other like professionals, and they're like, oh, Brian, other people report this. But yeah, they kind of know. It's like a sixth sense. It's this extra power or ability. Which really turns out it's every human's ability to actually see in the dark, right? What is an image? An image is like a 3-dimensional representation of space where you're detecting edges, things in the foreground, things in the background. Well, with sound, it's still creating an image. And my brain started adapting in this phenomenon of experience I would later learn was called echolocation. Sound reflects off of objects, and the human brain can learn to tell, size, shape, dimension, and density of objects. Like a pine tree reflects sound very differently than an oak tree. Or even better, let's say a banana tree with big, broad leaves of a banana tree reflects sound very differently than the sparse needles of a pine tree. And so every human being's brain has been born with the ability to actually see in the dark. So it makes me wonder, why are we all still afraid of it?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just things we don't know or to haven't accessed it. But now we have this unique population that are experts in listening, and their brains have changed to use this like this pretty well.
Yeah. So when people sense that somebody's come up behind them, do you think that's what this is?
It could be that, right? So most of our perception of what's going on in this moment is really a cross-section of all of our senses informing us, but our brain, because it likes to create boxes and put label and categorize things, we tend to remember our experience through a visual bias. You may have heard it, you may have felt it, but your memory will remember it as you must have seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have maybe heard the footsteps, but then there's this stranger one part, like people sometimes talk about like they sense when someone was like staring at them. What's that? That hasn't really been measured or studied, but that clearly is showing that, hey, someone's intention and focus from a great distance can make your brain think that I'm being watched.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of still unspoken things about our whole human experience, which is fun to explore. But science measured this echolocation things in not only my brain, but many, many of other people's brains. And they know that the brain, actually the object recognition parts of the brain are activated. So for me, I was now teaching myself to see in the dark.
Yeah.
Right? As a teenager, everybody has forgotten how we all learned how to see for the first time. Right? Do you guys remember how you learned how to see?
No.
No. Not at all.
Right? Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
Like the thing that we value so much, and the thing that, like, in the other big, like in that identity crisis, was my relationship with the mirror. One day I could make a form and shape of who I was in the mirror, and the next day for the rest of my life, I'll never get a sense of who I am through my reflection in the mirror. The sense of who I am is only going to be driven from the inside out.
Which is so powerful.
Right? So I really broke free from the mirror.
Right.
Well, I've most, we live in a world of all people with sighted people. It's amazing how it's so fun for me in a humorous way to watch people interact with their self-identity in the relationship with the mirror. It's
You're
crazy.
free of that. You can look however you want to today.
But then again, I now have to walk outside and have to put the work in to look
look put together, right?
Yeah, look the part, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
That's another part of that kind of philosophical journey.
Well, yeah, this is what I was experiencing. Like I was hit hard, real fast.
Yeah.
With a lot of these life truths as a young person. And I had to think about and sift through these things to get out the other side. Yeah. To get out the other side of everybody else's low expectations, where I could get to a point of self-agency where I could start choosing what environments I wanted to be in because they were better for my success, right? I could start then building and creating relationships with people to, knowing these things as opposed to just being stuck.
Well, as you can tell, listening to Brian, it's, I think the philosophical journey can only bring you so far in your experiences, but you're a well-educated man in this field as well.
Yeah. I got an undergrad degree from Pepperdine in speech communication, minor in nonprofit management. And then I was so sick with school. I then went right after I graduated college. My first experience of where I started changing my life into teaching was going to an orphanage in Calcutta, India. And for kids who are blind. And that's where my heart was moved to just start thinking that, wow, teaching is a meaningful pursuit. And I have skills like with echolocation that could really benefit people. And then just because a person can do it doesn't mean you know how to teach it, right? And then they got attracted to leadership principles and things. You have to, if you want to be a leader and you want to have influence, you have to be able to duplicate and replicate the things you're talking about. So then I started getting into the art of teaching and what does it mean to be a successful teacher. And my life was benefited, right? Like I had really good teachers, right? So I was also like, well, I had cool role models in my life that I just was like, well, if they could do it, I can do it. I want to be more like them.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like if you want to be a master in whatever domain, hang out with other people who are already masters with it.
Yeah, just like Tony Robbins was saying. Yeah, surround yourself by those people. So a couple of things, because we gotta kind of start winding down, unfortunately. But I want to know, like, other than navigating your everyday life, what are some other ways that you use echolocation? Are you able to, go to a new city that you don't know and ride a bike around, or?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, this answer is like, why would a blind person go sightseeing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you understand that the brain is actually imaging through this different sensory modality, so my brain is experiencing and seeing with sound. So there's actual beauty in the world.
Right.
Right. So, and yes, I can go to new cities and learn new spaces. But when it comes to, and I could bike in an area, but that's pretty risky.
Yeah.
But the way the mountain biking worked, like when we hit the trails, we would usually have a sided rider right out in front, and we'd have a sound source on the bike, a nylon zip tie that would angle into the spokes, and it would make like a grrr noise. And we could hear that and localize the sound and follow that. But then with echolocation, we could click and tell if we were closer to the left side or the right side. So I wasn't just alone doing this. I was with a group of other people, other blind guys who were interested in, like, how do we get off the tandem bike and become pilots of our perceptual system? And it really placed, like, it was really the question. Yeah, we can modify the environment, or you can have higher expectations for what the brain can do.
Mm.
So let's train the brain what we can do, because if you're going into the unknown, there's no infrastructure there.
Yeah.
So you're going to need a skill set to help you navigate the unknown, right? Yeah. And that's the other thing I learned. Like, when it comes to like making the world accessible, there's things we could do there's things we can develop to make the world accessible for us because of the things we develop. And then there's other things of infrastructure that we need, like wheelchair ramps and accessible stairs and elevators. But society moves slower to get those infrastructure things done, sometimes more than the human spirit moves.
Mm-hmm.
And in our particular situation, well, if we could see with sound, and everybody has the same passion, like, oh, it's important to see and your life is over, why don't we have the same passion for everybody to go experience this world of beauty in the echo images? So I found this beautiful aspect in this whole thing. Like, I conquered man's greatest fear. I learned to see in the dark.
That's awesome.
You must love sharing that.
Well, I love sharing it with all people, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is something I had access to before, didn't know it, was introduced to this world. I was lucky to have people who helped me contextualize this, like mentors that said, oh, Brian, that's echolocation. Like, I was trained in this, by other people. I just worked hard at it.
Yeah.
And then now through all the experiences in the education, and having a master's degree in special education, that I just like using my imagination to create cool, creative, adaptive ways of helping other people learn.
So that's an extreme example of it, but so there's much more subtle ones going on all the time that we just don't tune into.
Yeah, and everyone kind of knows it. So every blind person that is already using passive echolocation, they just may have different forms of articulating it or sensing it because they're trapped in that phenomenon of experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really being heard, and there could be room for other sensory inputs too.
Yeah.
But if you want to be really strategic about it, like using an active blick, like an active sonar signal, just brings you that much more clarity or fidelity or detail of your surroundings. And of course, it's not the same as 20/20 vision, but it's a lot more than nothing.
Yeah.
Which most people think blindness is.
And it sounds like it has some unique aspects of its own.
Oh yeah, I'm your best friend if we're out there. I have awareness what's coming up behind us. It's hard to sneak up on a blind person who's paying attention.
Very good.
Right.
All right, let's take a turn to the future, and then we'll get you out of here. Because, like I say, I think we could go for another hour or two, probably.
We'll be here all day.
This is fascinating. But what you've seen the world. You're doing. It sounds like what you love. You're not working a day in your life. But what else? What do you want to do in the future?
I really want to bring all of this to the world. My heart was moved for communities that don't even have the infrastructure. And this is, speaking specifically to the blind community. This is the thing that's pretty easy for people to do if they have the right type of social support. If they have the environment of belief, as people are, any human being, if you have the environment of belief from others around you, makes it so much easier to learn and to grow. Those first 2 years of my vision loss and adjusting to the world and identity crisis, I was operating through this desert of disbelief. I was learning to ride a bike and people would discredit it and be like, oh, it means you must concede. You're lying. You're not blind. You must be able to see something. So I really want to bring this to the world, and specifically now that we have the Paralympics coming up in LA in a couple years, I'd love to bring this perceptual development of how we actually use our senses in strategic ways to more Paralympic athletes here, specifically in the US, but around the world. And we would have higher expectations of human performance from this, because we're playing these sports, we're living these lives not fully informed yet. And I also work and consult, have my other company, Acoustic Athletics, who trains professional athletes in using their senses in more strategic ways. Sighted people, when they quiet their loudest sense, creates more real estate in the brain to start noticing other things and doing, tasks or thinking in divergent ways. And that really helps people through physical therapy in all these different ways. So, yeah. So, I got goals, travel around the world, service projects. I got, want to train the athletes in any family or anybody who wants to talk about this. But here's the crazy part. I could bring a person with 20/20 vision in 3 days. They will start hearing things using echolocation, and their brain will adapt and change in significant ways where they can hear a car, 5 feet away versus open space. And they learn it pretty quickly. And that's cool too. So basically, I want to help all people conquer the fear of darkness.
And it's very accessible. There's no equipment needed, right? Just, getting the knowledge and then tuning into it and honing it, perfecting it.
Yeah. A willing spirit and people to be brave and courageous to do things that are difficult. Life is extremely difficult as soon as you put a blindfold on. But there's a lot of things to learn from that in the way in which we approach challenging things. And that's why, actually, like the original scientists, when they wanted to study echolocation, the reason why they did it was to help all human brains find new ways of adapting to challenges. All humans, how does the human brain adapt to new challenges? It wasn't like, oh, we're here to go help blind people. That was like an afterthought. But, right, how do all humans adapt to challenges? And echolocation just happened to be a concrete way that we learned about neuroplasticity and its effectiveness. So we, as all humans, can learn new things at whatever age if we have the motivation.
Brian, before I let you go, we have a new thing that we want to do, and we're going to do every week. It's a question that I posed a few months ago on the podcast, and it was just, I don't know where it came from now. I can't remember, but the question is designed to kind of demonstrate, to show ourselves with disabilities and those without disabilities, just some of the things that impact our lives that people without disabilities might not think of. And so now I want to ask, and over the time that I've asked this question, thinking it was just almost like a throwaway question, I've asked it at a support group, and it's turned into a 20, 30-minute conversation based on this question alone. So I want to start asking it of our guests. And basically it's this simple. How long does it take you to put on your pants, shoes, and socks?
Well, how long does it take me to put my pants, shoes, or socks?
Yeah.
Depends on if I went to bed with my clothes already on or off.
Cheater.
Right? Hey, honesty.
well,
Zero on days that you slept in it.
For the sake of this conversation, let's say you took them off the night before.
Yeah.
And this is just an estimate.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm quick, 30 seconds to a minute.
Very good. Very good. That's good.
Yeah, that's a great question to evaluate, because I had experience once in Tennessee where I didn't remember where I put my shoes. And we're on the 17th floor and a fire drill goes out.
Oh.
And I'm like spending that 3 seconds looking for my shoes and going like, well, if this is real, screw the shoes. And then I created a new habit. Before I go to bed, I actually touch my shoes. So if I have to jump out of bed, I'm going to land in them.
You know right where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm quick, because I'm not I don't live with a worried mind, but I do live prepared to serve in the next moment. And I want to make sure the tools, like the performance tools, like a cane, and my shoes that I'm going to need, I just create that as a habit. They're part of my body, they're with me. So I'm pretty quick in that sense.
Good. Just so to give you a comparison, before I pose this question to anybody else, I timed myself and I'm at 7.5 minutes. Yeah.
Well, guess what? If we're in a fire together, you're coming out naked.
I know. That's what I thought about that.
Forget it, Doug.
Exactly.
We're going in all our glory.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
We're dressing up in the birthday suits today.
And away we go.
We'll collect things from other people along the way, right? We'll borrow a shoe from that guy, a sock from that guy.
We'll just decorate the wheelchair. Just set it on there like you had good intention.
Yeah.
I meant to get dressed.
Yeah. You really need a big piece of clothing, like a poncho.
Yeah.
We just
there we go. Yeah. Just throw it over my head and away we go.
Under your wheelchair seat, like in an airplane.
Well, Brian, we are going to keep an eye on you. It sounds, forgive the pun, but we are going to keep an eye on you and see how things go in the future. Thank you very much for spending some time with us and sharing everything that you've experienced and your knowledge and mastery of all of this with our audience on Walk and Roll Live. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much. Let's do it again, and I'll be clicking in your direction.
Yeah, let's do it.
Walk and Roll Live.
I come from a family of 3 brothers that have cerebral palsy like me, but their stages are slightly different than mine.
I think within the first 5 to 10 minutes in the neurologist's office, he knew exactly what he was dealing with.
They picked me up. I was like, heck yeah.
Nice.
See 2 grown men struggle doing that.
And nowadays we really want to focus on noticing these characteristics at an early age, because the earlier you get help, the better.
Walk and Roll Live. Disability stories. Like, follow, and subscribe. Life. Limitless.
It's a disabled life, rolling along, leaving my struggles behind, feeling strong. The road ain't easy, but that's just fine, 'cause I'm living my truth, walking my own life. Life is full of joy, I wouldn't change a thing. Overcoming what life hands me, hearing sin. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. It's a disabled life, and I'm breaking through.
I don't know about you, but we could have talked for hours, I think.
Yeah.
About this topic, and it's amazing. It's amazing to just, listen to his story and listen to how Brian's talking about neuroplasticity of the brain, because we, as a young, so my disability is on the left-hand side of my brain because it's reversed to what the actual trauma is, but they've tested my eye and they've said that I would have used my right hand instead of be left-handed if I didn't have CP. So it's fascinating to hear how that goes more in depth, because they've always told me that it was an adaptation by my brain to make me to be able to do something. So
yeah, when he was talking about that, I was reminded that, with polio, because, he was talking about how the optic nerve is not good, but eyeball's good, brain's good, everything else is good.
Yeah.
So then the eyeball can't see anymore. Well, with polio, it's nerve endings that are damaged. Muscles are fine, but they're not getting the impulses anymore, so they atrophy because they're not being used. Yeah. So
it's very similar.
Yeah, and they adapt.
It's like moving the eyeball thing down the body.
Yeah, and nerve endings adapt. So where I read a book and it was deep into the science, but so I can't repeat it exactly how it works, and it's was over my head at the time when I read it anyway. But your nerve endings can kind of repair. Not the dead ones, but they'll reach out and form new ones.
Right.
And then you get some of those abilities back. But because you start with less, then they start to deteriorate like we all do as we age, as part of the aging process. Yeah. And that's where post-polio syndrome comes in. Yeah. So very good. So next week, I've reached out to a gentleman we had on the show coming up, maybe close to a year ago, briefly, when we did the Triumph Foundation Adaptive Sports Festival in Santa Clarita, which hope to go back and visit them again for that event. But it was a gentleman that helped with adaptive archery. So I've sent him an email, and hopefully he'll have the time and he'll be on next week. If not, we'll find somebody and we'll have a little chat with him. So, okay, one more thing that we wanted to add this week. Want to check up on some of our past guests, and we're going to talk with Judy Diaz, who was guest number 2 about a year and a half ago, polio survivor. So let's give her a holler, see how she's doing.
Hello.
Judith.
Hi, Doug. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Well, we are recording the show. My new host and I, Addie. Meet Addie.
Okay.
Addie, this is Judith.
Hi.
Hello.
So we're going to start a new little segment on the show, and we're just going to touch base with old, and I don't mean old, but past, let's use that word, past guests.
Thanks.
So we just wanted to check up on you.
Oh, well, I'm doing so far good.
Good.
No complaints.
Let me do this formally. This is Judith Diaz, who was one of the first episodes of Walk and Roll Live about a year and a half ago. So a lot of time has come and gone. I know you were going to school, and I think you were getting pretty close to finishing. Where does it stand?
No, I'm still going to school. I have a few more classes to go, and then I'll be transferring to Cal State San Bernardino to get my bachelor's in medical administrative.
Awesome.
So I still have a few more classes to go here at Valley, and then I'll be transferring.
Well, good. We'll keep you in our thoughts. So what else? Anything else exciting going on in life? Everything pretty tame?
Everything pretty tame. I did a fashion show for Possibilities.
Oh.
That was fun.
I bet.
I actually had lots of fun. I enjoyed it. Had to wear skirts and dress that I haven't worn in a long time.
So did you get to keep the things that you showed?
Oh, yeah. I get to get the clothes and everything.
Awesome. Very nice.
Yeah. Looking forward for the next time we get to do a fashion show again.
Addie, got any
Awesome.
words of wisdom for Judith? Questions?
Not really. Not at the moment. We're glad to hear your voice. It's nice to catch up with people. You know, life continues on, and we want people to know we haven't forgotten about you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you guys check up on me, see how things are doing.
Very nice. Good to hear your voice. We'll let you go. Just didn't want to interrupt your day too much, but just wanted to kind of touch base.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's good to hear from you, Doggy. I wish you guys all the best on the show.
Nice.
All right. Other than that, resource page is up and going. Becca Robinson, I believe, has a class that's kind of adopted us over the last year or so. Yeah, and they've helped us with some topics. They've helped us with some resources, and they let me know when a resource link is not working. I try to check as much as I can, but they help me out, and they'll let me know if something's not working. So they can either, track it down and see that maybe it's just not up anymore and I can remove it, or I can fix it. So I'll do that. So thank you, Becca, and the whole class. Thank you very much. And also events page, looking for things, new year. If you've got events coming up and want us to help put the word out, we'll definitely do that. Just send me if you have like a flyer, send that, and whatever link that you need to get the information out, we'll help you out with that too. All right? That's all I got.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share and help us out as we try to build our community. Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Doug Vincent, with Addie Rich from the Aguiar Professional Training Studio. This has been Walk and Roll Live, Disability Stories, Life Limitless.